Good afternoon. Welcome to the first of our Q&A sessions live from the OHP Open Day. We are meeting the singers. We have with us today Nadine Benjamin, Alison Langer, and Howard Pennypacker, who is the new avatar of Paul Carey Jones, the artist formerly known as Paul Carey Jones. We're just actually rather grateful that he hasn't turned up as a blonde cowgirl called, what was the name?
Jessica.
Jessica. Okay. We're taking questions live if you want to submit them with the hashtag OHP Open Day. And first of all, I just want to say, this is where we've last seen each of you. Nadine, you were Amalia in Un ballo in Maschera. Alison was Oscar in Un ballo in Maschera, but not in the same casts. And Paul, you were last seen squeezing your feet into some female dancing shoes as Lescaut. So one of the things I wanted to ask each of you is, how do you slip between different characters? Alison, what was it like playing Oscar? I mean, was this a trouser role in this production, or was it sort of non-binary?
It was kind of non-binary. I mean, it is meant to be a young boy, but I had heels and a very fitted sort of suit. So I suppose really I was a boy, but I was kind of androgynous. So I had my hair in like an amazing mohawk, and you could kind of interpret it as you wanted to, but I really enjoyed taking on sort of the mannerisms of a boy. So I would follow my husband around the house while I was rehearsing and practicing to sort of get that stance, But it's sort of, it's just developed into this kind of like a sort of a mixture of the two, really. But I think it mainly is a boy, but it was really, really interesting being able to just let the character develop and do what I wanted to, really.
Oh, it was fabulous to watch, because I think Oscar is probably one of the most irritating and interrupting characters in opera, but you wove it in so that he, she, they were a really, really vital part of that story. Nadine, what was it like for you working on that particular production? I mean, Amalia is how good is she? Is she a heroine? Has there actually been something going on with the king?
Well, there has been a little bit going on with the king, so we do know that, and we do find that, and she is in love with him, and there is this feeling of, but she doesn't want to hold on to it because of her standing and her loyalty, and that she believes that, she has to stay faithful, so so I suppose in one way she is a heroine because she's standing by her morals, only to her detriment they don't kind of work out that way, because he wants to put her to death.
It's an interesting piece, because it's not really a love triangle, it's a love square, isn't it? There are 4 points if you count Oscar. I'm wondering about, playing virtuous characters tends to be something that sopranos often do. Paul, with your voice type, you're quite often playing slippery people, or gods, or dwarves, or giants, and things like that. How do you slip between doing a character like Lescaut, and was Wotan your next role last summer?
It was. That's how it ended up. Yeah. I find the process of rehearsing increasingly terrifying as I get older, because I think I try to be braver about going right back to the beginning each time and starting with a completely blank piece of paper. Because I think the danger is, as you build up years of experience in this, you end up, it's very easy to end up going back to a repertoire of sort of same old tricks. So you think, oh, I'll play this character like I played this one 5 years ago or whatever, So I think it's an important part of the process that you just go right back to the beginning, even as if you don't know how to do the job at all. That's how it feels for me at day one in rehearsal. And then therefore everything's up for grabs. So I take a lot of inspiration from how actors work in the spoken theatre, which, because of the parameters of how opera works, we tend to turn up very well prepared because we're supposed to. and we don't want to get fired or told off by a conductor. But spoken actors are much braver about turning up with nothing, and then they create everything together in the room. And I think, if we're brave enough to do that, then it leads to more interesting results and more authentic, truthful results, if with any luck.
Can I ask, how many of you have had experience of doing the same role but in different productions? I know you have, Paul. Nadine, has it all been different roles in different productions? Alison?
I don't actually think I've done that before. I think I've been very lucky to do sort of just a variety of different roles. I haven't repeated myself yet that I can remember.
Nadine, any repetitions so far?
Yeah, Madam Butterfly, I've repeated a couple of times. And Clara in Porgy and Bess, I've repeated a couple of times. And just trying to think. And
how different was each interpretation for you then, moving from production to production?
Well, I really agree with what Paul was saying about, I'm also a mind coach, and we call that working with a beginner's mindset. So coming to everything with that beginner's mindset, and I'm really, I really encourage that as well, because, when I suppose the difference is that you bring something new and you bring something fresh, and you're working with different colleagues each time. So the way that you respond to them is going to be very, very different. And sometimes, because the directors want to tell the story differently, you have to come with something new. So I don't think we can ever be the same. And the conductor also sometimes wants something very different vocally. So I think there's always room for improvement. And I think every time we do a role, I think anyway, that we're always learning and expanding and finding new things about those characters each and every time, which is really exciting.
Would it be fair to say that process continues through a run? Because I've always thought there's a very particular kind of energy to a first night, which I'm not sure, is it helpful? It's very exciting, but presumably where you end up at the end of a run. I mean, Paul, could you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think about directors' job, and wise directors. You can get directors who are very prescriptive and obsessive about exact detail, but the wise ones empower you and take you on board as a performer, as to not just what they want, but why. Because as you say, if you've got a particularly long run, the director, I mean, maybe a lot of people don't know this, but the director disappears after opening a night. Generally, you don't see the director after that, and they have no input. So really what they leave you with, after the dress rehearsal is what you've got to work with. And if a director hasn't inspired you to do what or hasn't taken you on board with what they want, or you just don't know exactly what it is they want and why, something can develop in completely disparate directions and end up being something completely different from what they had in mind. Whereas, a wise director will have his cast on board with his or her concept, and therefore what you're doing, why, and you can continue exploring it. So it's like a continuation of the rehearsal process.
Alison, when you were playing young Heidi in Follies, how different did the rehearsal process feel as an opera singer in a musical theatre setting?
I was actually just thinking about that as Paul was talking. It's a very, very different setting. I mean, all of the actors come sort of not knowing the script off copy, actually. And so on the first day I was going, nobody knows their lines. This is really unprofessional because we're so used to having everything completely prepared. But I think in the last question you asked, keeping things fresh every night, when you're doing like a run of 10 shows in an opera, for example, you've got a few days off in between to gather yourself together again to then go and do another performance. But Follies was 8 shows a week, so you have to find a different thing. And it is, for me, I found it very, very difficult. And I wasn't even doing any dancing. I mean, all these amazing dancers that get this energy and these, they're so good. But what they do have is an assistant director that sort of sits in every show, and they watch the show every night, and they'll come and give you tips at the beginning in the warm-up before each show. They say, right, let's try and focus a bit more on this. We've lost the meaning a little bit in this song, and give you sort of just feed you into things that you wouldn't necessarily know, because you sort of it becomes second nature. You think, oh yeah, and it makes it more exciting. So I think if I'm doing an opera and I have all those days off in between, I can use that time to go, okay, so what do I want to bring out of Oscar, for example? Do I want to give something different to the story? Do I want to give something different to his character? And you've got the chance to sort of absorb it then. But on a two-show day, sometimes you're just like, I just need to get through the day, to get through the show. Yeah, it's very different, very different.
I'd like to move on to physical fitness and stamina in a minute, but I just want to go to our first question, which is from Suzanne. Oh, this is very interesting, especially given the different backgrounds that you've all come from into this profession. My 16-year-old daughter is finalising her A-level choices and would love to pursue a career in opera. Prior to your master's in opera studies, what did you study? What A-levels did you do? Now, 16, that's an early commitment, and we're not sure from this whether singer, director, designer, stage manager, producer, could be all sorts of things. I'm guessing it's singer. Nadine, when did you start learning singing?
Gosh, I only started learning singing about 11 or 12 years ago. I didn't start from a very, very young age. I just had a natural gift from a very young age. So I sang rock and pop and drum and bass and garage, and so for me, kind of my first operatic singing lesson was 12 years ago. I didn't really do any. I did some AS levels, and I started off in business administration. So I came through a business route and ended up in corporate finance. Actually, that was really great for me to go this route, because actually then when I did start having a career, then I could apply my business skills to my career as an artist.
Paul, you're from a scientific background, aren't you?
Yeah, I studied physics at university, and so A levels were physics, chemistry, maths, that kind of thing. Then I worked as a teacher before coming back to college to study singing. So I think that there's as with Nadine, I mean that there's a lot to be said for having a second string to your bow. There's no huge hurry to get cracking as a singer, because if you're doing it right, you get better as you get older. And it's now more than ever a very uncertain profession. So, the obvious answer for any singer choosing A-levels would be music and drama and languages. But don't be afraid of mixing it up a bit and keeping your options open, because it's a crazy world out there.
I just want to counter that and say, if she wants to become a critic, art history is extremely useful. Can I turn to you, Alison, now? You had more conventional route in, didn't you?
I did. I went to music college and did a vocal studies 4-year degree from leaving school. But I started it when I was 18, and I did a year, and then I took 4 years off because I wasn't ready for it. 18, I was too young. I wasn't enjoying it, and I was taking away valuable time from people that really wanted to be there. So I sort of just had 4 years of normal life and didn't, really pursue my singing. I sort of had a receptionist job, got a boyfriend, that I was more interested in that sort of side of life. And then when the novelty of that wore off, I then thought, right, I think I'm going to go back to Guildhall and see if they'll take me back and say sorry for dropping out. And they took me back, and I'm so happy I did. I went in at 24, and I was so much more prepared for it. I was, I wanted to do it then as well. I really, really wanted to do it. And it took a couple of years to get that instilled in me. But then, yeah, I did the 6 years and 4 years on the undergrad, and then 2 years on the opera course, and then started from there. So yeah, if I could give any advice, it would be just make sure you really, really want to do this, because it's hard work, but it's worth it if you want it.
Well, it's partly hard physical work, isn't it? I mean, there's the maintaining the stamina during the run, but we have an interesting question here from Caroline. How are you guys keeping your voices in shape with more limited opportunities to sing in lockdown? And how do your neighbours feel about that? Nadine.
I'm very lucky. The house I live in, they love it. I can sing whenever I want. They've got no problems with it. But I'll be honest, the first kind of 4 or 5 weeks, I didn't want to sing at all. I just didn't feel that I was, just didn't feel the urge. I just felt that I wanted to be still in what was going on. And but now that I've come back to it, I'm back in my singing lessons again. I'm having my singing lessons online again, and I'm warming up every day with my straw. And you know, it's just, yeah, I'm loving being back, and also my physical fitness as well every day. Just, you know, staying on top of it, because we will be on stage again.
I'm sorry, can we unpick the straw bit for those who don't know what you mean by that?
Well, it's funny because my colleague Idunu Munch was saying that she warms up through a straw yesterday, and I was like, oh my god, I didn't think anybody else did that. So it literally is like just getting a straw just to keep the vocal cords. It keeps the vocal cords in a really good shape, and obviously if you've got neighbours that you don't want to bother, it's really good to go and warm up, and it really gives it's a great thing for the vocal cords.
Have you tried the straw technique, Alison?
Yeah, I use a metal straw, obviously, or like not a plastic one.
Yeah.
But I have, but only recently when a colleague who was in a show with me said it to me, but I didn't quite understand it because I'd never done it before. But yeah, I'll be doing that tomorrow with my straw.
And are your neighbours patient with you?
Our neighbours are amazing. When we first moved into this sort of block, it's a block of 12 apartments, and we sort of put a note in saying, we're opera singers, we're really sorry, we'll try and sit our singing just between the times. And nobody said anything, and you know, we haven't had any complaints, so we're lucky. But like Nadine, I haven't really been singing. I couldn't get any motivation to sing for about only really until this week, and maybe a bit of last week, to just sort of get myself back going again, because it was just, when you don't have anything to work towards, you sort of just think, oh, I don't really want to do this because I'm reminding myself of what I'm not doing. It's sort of a bit hard to battle with that, but now I'm sort of a bit more of a positive attitude about it and getting back on the wagon.
Well, that week in March, it suddenly went from being a threat that was miles and miles away, rapid acceleration to sort of point blank range. And I remember watching everybody posting on social media about cancellations and postponements of various productions, and the summer just disappearing. Paul, how did you handle that? I know you've had your hands busy babysitting, childminding, doing home ed.
I'm desperate to get back to work, to have a rest.
And can you remind us what the 5-year-old had to say about this session?
So we were talking yesterday, and I said, tomorrow I'm doing my first Zoom webinar. And she said, what's a webinar? And I said, it's when lots of people get together on the internet and talk. And she said, talky boring.
Well, okay. I mean, we did have the option of talking about trains or poo or unicorns, but sadly this is sort of age 5 and upwards, not downwards. Just to remind anybody who's watching, you can submit your questions for Nadine, Alison and Paul on hashtag OHP Open Day, and we will do our best to answer them. Nadine, we were talking earlier about your Opera Holland Park debut in the delightfully titled role of Ermintrude.
I like it.
In Mascagni's Isabeau. I was wondering what it's like to take a very sort of symbolic supporting role where she's almost not characterized at all. You actually got most of the most beautiful music in the opera, that duet, yeah. But the two of you were very, very you're more like figures than people. What was that like? How do you maintain the energy in something like that?
Well, you know, we had the fabulous Anne-Sophie Duprel, and when you have an artist who is like that, it's very, very easy to stay focused and very connected. because she has a way of encompassing everybody around her, not just the audience, and really allowing you to believe in her story, and she doesn't shut you out energetically. So staying focused on her as Isabeau was really, really, really important, along with my twin, you know, and we also stayed very, 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 very connected. And then it's just, what is my story in this? You know, what does Isabeau mean to me? Why am I doing what I'm doing? How am I going to protect her? You know, what are my little mannerisms that I have that are different from my twin? You know, how do I want to show up? How do I want to tell my story in reaction to what's going on with Isabeau? But really and truly, it's just staying focused on Isabeau, who was played by Anne-Sophie, and just keeping that focus and attention, and never leaving the story, never jumping out of the story.
Alison, you've worked opposite Anne-Sophie. What is it like?
It's exactly how Nadine described. She's a very focused person. She's really, you just feel like you're getting your work done, you know, because it's like nothing else. You can also have a wonderful chat with her in the lunch break, and you know, she's really fun and great, but she cares as much as you would want somebody to care about a show, you know, and she strives to get it to that point that's not perfection, but it's pretty close to, you know, and I just love her work ethic, and it just bolstered me up to want to be exactly the same and go, yes, somebody else is really rooting for this show, because you need it, because you can get people in casts that aren't enjoying the process as much as you like. That's, you know, people have different opinions, different ways of working, but it's amazing how an energy like that can bring you down. So to have somebody so on the same level and as the cast and really with you and leading a company it's really important, and she was fantastic at that.
Does it make it daunting then to step into her shoes, as it were? Was it daunting as Amalia, Nadine? Did you have to sort of wipe all memory of Anne-Sophie's Amalia and make Amalia your own, or?
I mean, this is what I'm saying, you know, I feel very moved even thinking about it now, is the whole way through the process, she knew I was covering her. And, you know, and my thought process is on cover, being a cover, is that you're just there to support the artist. You're not there to get on stage. You're there to support the artist and let the other artists know that you're there if they need you, you know. And the whole way through the focus, she would be like, Nadine, are you getting on okay with the role? You know, can I help you with anything? I mean, she just was so loving and so supporting. So what happened, you know, Anne-Sophie has never taken a day off in 20 years. Okay, not 20 years, she's never taken a day off at all. So when I just thought I'd never be on stage anyway, so I just thought I'll just be prepared, because I'm never, you know, and then so when I did hear, I knew, just like what Alison was saying, you know, her character, I knew that I couldn't let her down. I was like, oh my God, she hasn't taken a day off in 20 years. There is no way I am gonna I don't care what I have to do, but I am gonna be just 150% on my game. I don't care. And, you know, and I didn't disappoint. And I feel really, because I knew I had her loving support. I knew I could be all of myself in that role, and the colleagues around me, had Alison there as well. Everybody was magnificent. Backstage, all the management, you know, they were fully supportive. And so when you've got that foundation to lie upon, you just give it all that you've got, and you just fly. And I just felt that I was able to fly that day and fly the flag for Anne-Sophie, and I felt really proud for doing that.
That's terrific. We got another question in from Rosie, who asks, did you all do masters, postgrads in singing? I mean, including, you know, after careers in business or after teaching and so forth. Do you think it's necessary, that kind of training? Is it necessary for aspiring performers? Paul?
That's a really good question. It's not absolutely necessary, but you will need most aspects of the training that they give you during a formal conservatoire-based course. So if you choose not to, you're going to have to answer the question of where you're going to get that training from. It's not, so, I'd say it's close to being necessary at some stage for some amount of time, even if it's just to get an idea of what those things that you do need are. It's not the be all and end all. It's the beginning of a learning process, not the end of it, and not or the entirety of it. It's very important to understand that you keep learning as an artist throughout your career. So it's a springboard into the lifelong learning of a career. It's, I'd also caution against doing it for too long. I think there are singers who get stuck in training for for 8, 9, 10 years, and that makes it difficult then, because you get a little bit institutionalized. But I would say that there's a lot to be said for it, so I would consider it very seriously.
Because it's more complex than just vocal training and just vocal training and language coaching, isn't it? You have to be able to move, don't you? Alison, you're very nimble on your feet. Was that a natural thing, or did you learn how to do it?
Well, I think it's a natural thing, because I didn't really stick with any of my dance classes when I was younger. I sort of did ballet for half a term and then went, okay, I want to do tap now. And, I was never I never stuck to one dance. But I think it's the experience you get. So when I was growing up, I was in my local amateur dramatic society, Harpenden Operatic. And
Harpenden.
I did shows like 42nd Street, where I was Peggy, did Eliza Doolittle, all the roles where you learn dances. So I knew sort of, and I learned all about what backstage was, and where stage left is stage right, all the stagecraft, everything that you need. So I sort of had a big, well, what I thought was everything I needed to know to just go and sail through to to be a singer and an actress. But it is just that extra bit of training that gives you the finesse. It's about having the finesse, and about having that, just what's that extra thing you can give to somebody to make them pick you to be in that show. So yeah, sorry.
How important is a sort of collegiate attitude, Paul?
I think it's crucial. In fact, it's why I think it's the thing that sense of teamwork is the thing that first attracted me to this as a business back when I was doing sort of Amdran stuff. I did, Alison, my teenage years were spent with Cumbraen Amateur Operatic Society, or Chaos as they were known. And when you used to, it's very important. There's a tradition in Wales of it being a competitive thing, of the Steddfods and things when you're growing up, especially. And when you first work on a show, it's that same sense of teamwork that you get from a team sport, but without competing against anyone, which is a very beautiful experience. And I think that's a crucial thing for young singers to understand. Because even at music college, then you're thrown into these competitions and these auditions, and it's a very competitive environment. But it's important to take on board that ultimately this is a team game, and you are all working together and not against anything or anyone. That you're working together for the same very, very beautiful artistic goal.
And it's not just about your singer colleagues, is it? Or, getting on well with the conductor or getting on well with the director. I mean, there's a whole host of other people who are involved in every single production. All the backstage support that's there. One hears stories of high-handed behaviour, but I've never actually witnessed it. That was a cue. Okay, I'm going to turn to another question, since you're not obliging me with gossip. Nigel asks, what music are you practicing now? Is there work planned after lockdown? This is several questions, Nigel. Or is it hard because we don't know when lockdown is ending? Yeah, it's very hard, I would say, isn't it?
I've got a lot of online work actually that's just been happening with me. I've just completed an opera, which I had to be the producer and everything all on my own, but there were other people involved who were showing me, and I've got some other projects coming up with different orchestras where I'm going to be recording, my line, and then they're going to send me the music, and we're doing it by a click track and things like that. But there are projects that are absolutely going on if you're willing to get involved in the technicalities of it. I think that's the hardest bit, if I'm honest. You know, but like Alison and Paul, you know, I did I was part of the Battersea Arts Centre youth theatre, and you know, I had a disco dancing thing that I did. So I used to do disco dancing, and I never had a formal training. So I'm, you know, and all my training I did privately. So I'm used to kind of being flexible and just get going for it. If there's another project, if there's a new idea, I'm also really great at creating ideas as well. I love collaborating with people. So because I think lots of people know that, you know, I have had lots of inquiries in terms of getting stuff done, like how do we just stay creating? And I think that's really important in a time like now, because we keep comparing where we were to where we are now. There's that line, compare and despair, which means we're not in the present moment, we'll be in somewhere else, we're in another moment, and we have to deal with what's going on now. So I'm getting excited about what we can collaborate, create, and kind of have the new ideas and the new innovation that we can create together, while also standing for things changing and how we can support that.
It's a tricky balance, isn't it? Alison, are you into all the new technical possibilities, or are you still mourning, still looking at your watch and thinking, oh, I should be in the rehearsal room now?
If I'm completely honest, it was a real hit, because I was just about to be in a production at the Opera House. So it was my Opera House debut, and a week before opening night, everything got cancelled. So I think that's why I was like, why did it have to happen then? And it just really hit me. But now, I mean, nothing will compare to singing in front of an audience and getting that feedback. There's no other way you can do it. But I am now starting to find that all the different ways of being able to record concerts. I had a concert that I was preparing, you know, last year of all based on the life of Jenny Lind. So I'm going to give myself that project back and get back on the horse with that, and really start learning more songs, exactly, and just get the creative juices flowing again. You're so right, Nadine, just sitting in it and going, well, it isn't going to do anything. So just push forward.
Paul, you're a prolific blogger. I know that you've been thinking quite a lot about what the future holds. Can you sort of succinctly outline your ideas at the moment, as they exist at the moment?
I think this is, I think we're beginning to realise actually that this is going to take a lot longer than perhaps we thought at first. I think the longer the sort of lockdown and the shutdown does continue, the more of an opportunity it gives us as individuals, and even more importantly as an industry, to go back to the drawing board and look at how we've always done things, and whether that's the right way of doing it, or whether there's a better way of doing it. And if we're not going to change things now, then when are we going to do it? So this is an opportunity, if we choose to take it, to re-examine every single thing we do, and the way we do it, and why we do it that way, without getting into specific details.
I think one of the encouraging things is that at least the Inspire work has been able to switch pretty smoothly online, so that is still continuing. Going on with the Inspire theme, I was wondering if you could, Nadine, just describe the curtain call, which I know both you and Alison have had, the curtain call at the end of the school's matinee.
Oh, it's just incredible. I mean, it penetrates right the way through your body, through your heart, every organ, to just see these kids in so much joy. Oh, it felt like the roof was coming off. It just was, I can't really put any words. There are no words, Alison.
No, there were no words. I burst into tears. I was like, oh my God, this is the best feeling. I felt like a rock star, honestly. There's no other way to describe it. You feel like these thousand kids just going, oh my God. And they stayed engaged and they listened the whole way through. And I think that's what moved me the most, is how, and then when you speak to them afterwards and they're all going, I loved it when you did this. And, you know, and they just want to tell you what they loved. And you just think, oh my God, I'm so happy that 1,000 children just enjoyed an opera that was quite long. And you know, it's so amazing. There's nothing will compare to it. Nothing.
I think they were one of the most, in both cases of Traviata and Ballo, they were so well behaved. They were so switched on to every detail of the story, performed complete, no differences whatsoever, in Italian with the surtitles, and they were just there. They were less fidgety than most adults, I'd say.
Yeah.
So looking ahead, what are you going to be singing next? Do you have any idea?
Well, I'm supposed to be singing Clara in Vienna with Teatro Divine in September, in October. And next year I will be in Die Walküre with English National Opera, and also doing my debut with my US debut. I'm going to be playing Wendy Torrance in Stephen King's The Shining.
Golly.
So yeah, so that will be quite
yeah, make sure that you're not behind a door for that role.
So I'm just really looking forward to those, and yeah, and a couple of concert tours as well, which will be really fantastic. So I'm just holding the torch for those.
Terrific, super. Really quickly, because we've got the 5-minute warning now from the production team. Paul, what's up next for you?
I'm not sure. There's several projects which were scheduled for the next few months, which are now kind of on ice. So watch this space.
Okay.
The long-term project that is still on the boil is the Loughborough Ring Cycle. We would have been going to Loughborough tomorrow to put Walküre on stage. So that's where we would have been without comparing and despairing. So that's we're currently jiggling around. The idea is that the full cycle is on in the summer of 2023. So we're now sort of jiggling dates around and seeing how on earth we can squeeze it all in. Yeah, like I say, watch this space, but we will be back.
Alison?
And yeah, it's a watch this space for me as well. Projects that were meant to happen are being postponed, but also auditions that I've not heard back from, understandably. So we will see. We will wait.
How rude. She's fabulous. Hire her. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up now. Thank you very, very much, Nadine, Paul, and Alison. To those who are watching this, who've enjoyed it, who've enjoyed everything from the vocal warm-up to the arm waving with Matt and Lada and Dane, the leg work with Steve, please, if you'd like to support Opera Holland Park, just go to our website. We would very much appreciate it. We want to get these beautiful people back on stage as soon as possible. Stay well, and thank you, everybody.
Bye, thanks.
Bye. Bye-bye.